lovelies. It is Monday, September 19th, 2022. I am with Taratopia today on the Harbour Hopper. The current temperature is 18 degrees Celsius in Halifax, which is about 64.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I am doing a voiceover at the start of this just because the first part of my video didn't record for some strange reason. But we are on the Harbour Hopper. Our tour guide is Sean, and he's going to be letting us know a lot about some touristy things here in the city. Now, in the 27 years that I've lived in the city, I have never taken the Harbour Hopper. I've seen it. I've waved to it many, 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 many times. But the first half of the tour is on land, where we go from the waterfront all the way up to Citadel Hill. And then from Citadel Hill, we do make our way back down into the harbor. It is an amphibious vehicle that was made for the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. And 100 of them are basically used for tours. I know that Halifax has the Harbour Hopper, and I do believe in Boston you can go on the Duck. So right now we are coming up towards Barrington Street from the harbor. We just passed McKelvey's and the Old Triangle. We are underneath the canopy, but the sun still made its way through. Now, Taratopia and I, we did decide to sit at the very back of the Harbour Hopper, because if you sit in the front, when you go down into the harbor, they call that the splash zone. I was not risking my camera getting wet. Anyway, we will come back. I will come back with a little bit more of a voiceover. We'll listen to Sean as he is telling us, all the passengers here on the Harbour Hopper, of what we're seeing and some interesting facts about Halifax. Some I knew and some I learned. All right, we'll catch you in a little bit.
And they offered people the land to come, rations to come, and tools. Really didn't get a whole lot of people. About 2,576 people came, to be exact. Then they said, whatever will we do to bring more people to Halifax? And they offered everybody free booze. And when they did that, more and more people started to come. And so in doing that, ladies and gentlemen, we now have more bars per capita than any city in Canada other than St. John's, Newfoundland. We're chasing St. John's, Newfoundland. So the original pub is the Split Crow Club. So that's down on just off of Grafton Street, or sorry, just off of Paula Street. The street we just passed is Argyle Street, and Argyle Street was really the first street where the affluent bachelors of the British settled. Nicely done in the waving. Very good. That's excellent. And you're passing the convention center as well here. The convention center, ladies and gentlemen, is a new build here that attracts thousands of conference delegates that really brings a lot of spin-off to the city. Now, as we make our way to the top of the hill, we're coming up on Brunswick Street. There's an important building that I want to point out on Brunswick Street to everybody, and it was formerly known as the Halifax Academy, now the NASCAD Art Gallery, and so with the Halifax Academy, you'll notice that the blinds in the windows are pulled down, and there's a reason for that. So during the Halifax explosion on December 6, 1917, there was a lot of commotion, and many people would look out their windows to see what the commotion was, and the teachers asked the students to stay in their seats. And in doing so, she saved every one of their eyesights and every one of their lives. So I'm going to show you for a second. So this is the Halifax Academy building here. You can see the blinds are pulled down. And so before the explosion happened, the students were in the windows there. She was adamant as a teacher that they learn their lessons and stay in their seats. And she pulled the blinds down. And we'll learn more about that in a little bit, but she saved their eyesight and their lives by doing so. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're heading up to the Halifax Fortress, the Halifax Citadel. This is a National Historic Site. the #2 visited National Historic Site in all of Canada. Second, and we seem to be getting a lot of seconds here next to St. John's with the bars per capita, but second only to Ottawa for the Parliament buildings. Now, we have heard, ladies and gentlemen, that the Parliament buildings are under renovation, and that this year will be #1 visited because they've had less visitors. Yeah, so we'll take the W any way we can. Now, you're going to see the bastion-style fortress as we make our way around, but important to note the town clock here, ladies and gentlemen. And the town clock was first put here by Prince Edward, Duke of Kent. And he was a very punctual and stern man, and he felt that the soldiers in the garrison were always late. So he wanted to make sure they'd be on time, and he commissioned for the town clock. The clock facing the garrison is the clock that's used for the soldiers. The rest of the clocks were used for the townspeople in the city of Halifax. Now notice the 78th Highlanders standing there. And did you hear the noon gun at 12 noon today, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, so every day at 12 noon, the noon gun goes off, except for Christmas Day. That noon gun tells us all that it's 12 noon and it's lunchtime. Now, we were fortunate enough one year to have the G7 here in Halifax. Unfortunately, we didn't tell the security services of the many different presidents and prime ministers and delegates about the noon gun. The noon gun went off right around 12 noon, or right at 12 noon, as it always does, and immediately the secret services and various security services swarmed the tables to protect the presidents and prime ministers and delegates. So a bit of a mistake on our part. Jean Chrétien was the Canadian prime minister at the time. I was told that he didn't even flinch. So it'll be interesting to see if that's actually true. Now, if you look across the way at the Halifax Commons, I'm a proud Haligonian and born and raised here. This is a great green space, ladies and gentlemen. You can go and play baseball there. There's an oval there where you can skate. You can walk, run, ride your bikes, and it's really, really great for the city to have so much green space. It was put there by the British as a sight line to be able to see any of the enemy coming to attack. So Halifax is considered one of the most heavily protected cities in the world. This building here, ladies and gentlemen, is the high school. I have two twin boys that when they were young I'd call them Seek and Destroy. They're in grade 10 now, and they're in the Halifax Citadel School. If you see the movie, or sorry, the show Mr. D, Mr. D was filmed there about a high school teacher. So that is one of the most LEED-friendly buildings. The students were instrumental in ensuring that it was environmentally friendly, and it has lots of recycled material there used to build, as well as it catches rainwater on the roof to help recycle through the toilets and various sinks, etc. Now, as we make our way around the Citadel, it's a bastion-style fortress. You can see that the moats are 20 to 40 feet deep. So this was by design to be able to make sure enemies couldn't attack the fort, and if they did, they'd be able to be seen from up above. You saw the mass at half-mast today, ladies and gentlemen, for the Queen, the Union Jack there at half-mast. The signal towers are here. So these signal masts were used to signal up ships coming in and out of the harbour using lights, flags, and balls. So when we get into the Halifax Harbour, I'll be able to show you the signal masts on George's Island, where they would communicate with one another. There's just a clear sight line between the Halifax Citadel Fortress and Fort Charlotte, which is on George's Island. And you can just get a beautiful view here, ladies and gentlemen, of the Halifax Harbour. And we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it's the second largest natural harbour in the world. Second only to Sydney, Australia, and you'll see that when you get out on the harbour. Cruise ships in today as well. We actually have over 300 cruise ships arrive in Halifax each year. It's a really huge source of economic spin-off for us. Anybody from the cruise ship today? No? Yeah, don't mind the brakes. If you have a chance, ladies and gentlemen, the public gardens is just straight ahead here. We won't go directly by it, but we're in near proximity to it. And the public gardens were first started in 1873 to have Victorian style gardens here in the city, and to make sure that we have a place to go to escape the city and have more green space. In the public gardens, one gate is always going to be closed, ladies and gentlemen. It's the gate from Edinburgh to Scotland that was given as a gift. It only opens if royalty is here. So when we visit, we can go to either side of the gates, which will always be open, and there are black wrought iron gates as well. But the one gate there will only be opened if royalty is there. We had an unfortunate hurricane in 2003, Hurricane Juan, which is a Category 2 hurricane. It really devastated the public gardens, which was unfortunate. Didn't affect the bandstands or any of the wrought iron gates. However, it did destroy a lot of the plants and trees that were originally planted there. The business community got together, and in one weekend they raised $1 million to restore the public gardens to what it is today. And so it just goes to show you how important it is to the city to have those gardens to stroll through and get out of the city. Now, as we make our way down to Spring Garden Road, this is the most visited pedestrian street east of Montreal. So we see about 25,000 people walk Spring Garden Road a day. The name Spring Garden Road comes from the spring that ran under the public gardens. So that's where the name came from. You'll see lots of people, so this will be a great opportunity to wave and engage, but this street is the most heavily visited. Now, we'll be in a little bit of traffic here for just a moment, but you will be able to see the Halifax Library as we make our turn onto Spring Garden Road. Hello, folks! We have people from all over the world today on the Harbour Hopper.
From Halifax. How's the lunch?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an ice cream place.
Sometimes you get shunned. You can't always get people. Sometimes a little, yeah, enjoying their lunch maybe. The Halifax Library in front of us is relatively new, ladies and gentlemen, within the last 5 years. Took $57 million to build the Halifax Library. We Haligonians call it, we call it Halifax's living room. Everybody's welcome. Our children actually go there. They probably play more video games than read books, but it's there for them. It's one of the most lead-friendly buildings in all of North America. And ladies and gentlemen, it's not the tallest building in Halifax, but it sure does have the most stories. Yeah. So the odd time you got to do the odd tour guide joke, right? Just to make sure everybody's paying attention. But ladies and gentlemen, in all seriousness, we're really proud of the Halifax Library and its new build. And if you do have a chance to look, it is shaped like a stack of books that were stacked up on one on top of another. This is actually the old library here, ladies and gentlemen. That's actually over a burial ground, so it won't be disrupted or taken down. The statue there you see is of Winston Churchill, British Prime Minister. When he visited Halifax, he said, "Now I can actually go back to England and tell everyone that Halifax is more than just a shed at the end of a pier." You pass the Nova Scotia Provincial Courthouse, which we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is the original burying ground, or the old burying ground as it's called here in Halifax. So there is 12,000 people buried here in the old burial ground. However, only 1,200 tombstones. And the 1,200 tombstones only is because that many people were not able to afford tombstones, and so that they were buried here without tombstones or headstones. But because there's so many people buried there and so many limited space, lots of people were buried standing up as well. So they say as early as day 2, that here in Halifax in 1749 they started to bury people here. Now there's a really famous person buried here that's responsible for something that you may all know about. His name was Major General Robert Ross, and Major General Robert Ross was touted for his ability to fight against Napoleon, and he was brought into the War of 1812, and he had a grand idea that he would burn down the U.S. government house at the time, and he tried to burn it down, but it was made of limestone, ladies and gentlemen. So he charred it and he made it all distorted and black, but he wasn't able to burn it down. And so they painted that building white and called it the White House. And that's why today you know the White House as the White House, because of Major General Robert Ross, who tried to burn down the White House during the War of 1812. Now, he was killed in 1814 in Baltimore, and he was very loyal to the crown, and he was asked that he be buried on British soil. Well, they couldn't bring him all the way to England, so they brought him here to Halifax where they buried him. But they brought him from Baltimore preserved in a barrel of rum. And and his soldiers were so loyal to them, they drank out of that barrel, making Nova Scotia's first full-bodied rum. In fairness, the last part is not true. They didn't drink out of the barrel, but they did preserve his body in a barrel of Jamaican rum and brought him all the way here to be buried. Now, this is Barrington Street, ladies and gentlemen, one of the business districts here of Halifax. Lots of businesses line Barrington Street. But I'd like to see how many people here are fans of the NHL. All right. Do you know that there's 3 Haligonians in the last 10 years that have won the Stanley Cup and then have brought the Stanley Cup to Halifax? So we have Sidney Crosby, who's won it twice with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He actually did his parade on the Harbour Hopper, so he rented the Harbour Hopper and hoisted the Stanley Cup. Then we have Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins, who won the Stanley Cup. He brought the cup here and also rented the Harbour Hopper. And then Nathan McKinnon, just recently, he hoisted the Stanley Cup right in the Grand Parade Square, which I'm about to show you. So, Rachel, did you drive any of those tours when she was on? It wasn't one of her 2,877 tours, unfortunately. But yeah, that one she wouldn't have to listen to anybody either. She could have just, but exciting to think, and of course you can imagine that every parent now thinks they have the next NHL Stanley Cup championship player in their household, so it's interesting. We're coming up on St. Paul's Church. This was the second building built in Halifax in 1749, opened its doors in 1750 in September. So ladies and gentlemen, St. Paul's Church here is the oldest Protestant worshiping church in North America. So first opening its doors in 1750 in September of that year. This is the Grand Parade Square. So this is where we all come to gather for different festivals and events. Today I'm sure there was a gathering here to honor the Queen. There is also, this was really what the Grand Parade Square was originally intended to do in the early days, is to come here, be able to get some information, celebrate, have festivals and so on. And it's also home to City Hall. So Mayor Mike Savage calls home to City Hall. He knows how important the Harbour Hopper is to the city. Look at his office window right there, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Harbour Hopper with the big heart. And we can say right back to Mayor Savage, thanks for all you do. The building is the City Hall, also famous for Harry Houdini. Harry Houdini, an escape artist, as many of you may know, came to Halifax, had a few too many, was imprisoned in what was then a small prison, and he escaped. And so the next day he called and he said, I would like to come back and get my shoes. And they said, well, Mr. Houdini, aren't you still down in the cell? And he said, no, I've actually escaped. I'm an escape artist. And so he did that and escaped from the building. But another notable mark is that the clock there on top of City Hall, just right here as we look facing up, is still at 9:05 a.m. from when the Halifax explosion happened. So the clock has never been changed. It was stopped at that time and remains at 9:05 a.m.
9:04.
Okay, so now I have to take a small... Hello! Woo! Now she's there all day long and does that every time we pass by. So she's on cue, right? She's right on cue. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's the part where you're going to have to vote. Now, usually we don't like to do government by committee, but are you looking for a little splash today? Are you looking for a medium splash or a big splash? So just, how many people for a big splash?
Woo!
All right.
We're in the back.
How many people for a medium splash? Okay, big is winning.
Go big or go
Yeah, I don't think everybody participated on the big, but I get the vote. You're not going to go against them. Now the way this works is Captain Rachel, when she gets to the harbor, the mouth of the harbor here, she's going to talk to the harbor master. We are going to ram that dump truck. Go right in. So ladies and gentlemen, we had a small scare there that the construction may have prevented us from getting in. We have seen parked cars there in the past, but right now we're okay. Nobody wants to ruin the Harbour Hopper's day. Yeah. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, very important though, please hang on to something. I'm going to scooch over on the seat myself. Rachel's going to get permission, and then it's just like a roller coaster. She's going to back us up a little bit to get a little speed, and then she's going to put the throttle down, okay?
Yeah.
Now, everyone remember to hang on just a little bit, and we have to scream really loud. Not to scream like we're afraid, but to scream that we're happy, okay?
You got something to hold on to? I got the holy shit bar right here.
Oh, she got it. Here we go. Everybody ready? Hang on to something. Here we go. Woo! Oh, okay. I got you covered. Don't worry. How was that? Awesome! Okay. You want to do it again? Oh, wow, okay. You come back on the 215 tour, you can do it again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Halifax Harbour, second largest natural harbour in the world. It's shaped like an hourglass, 37 kilometers long in some parts, 2.2 kilometers wide, and close to 71 meters deep in some parts. So, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that it's shaped like an hourglass was really important when it comes to the Halifax explosion, which we'll talk about once we can see the narrows of the harbour so that you can understand how that happened. But the Halifax Harbour has been home to a naval base since 1758. You're looking across at Dartmouth, ladies and gentlemen. And Dartmouth, when I was a kid, was its own city. We would call it the dark side. So anybody from here knows that you always refer to it as the dark side. Wasn't really fair. Great place to visit. And but just recently, within the last 20 years, it's now Halifax Regional Municipality. We're one super city, ladies and gentlemen. So now reaching 441,000 people as of 2021, and 1 million people in Nova Scotia now. So the province is really growing. Some of the technology that you should know about. This is Purdy's Wharf here, these two towers. Notable is the pedways that you can use, especially in the wintertime, to walk through some of the downtown community without going outside. But these buildings, ladies and gentlemen, are cooled by seawater. And they use heat exchange to recycle the seawater and save about $104,000 a year on their air conditioning. The Halifax Waterfront, which we're crossing here now, we're going to see lots of people around. This is a 4-kilometer walk, or harbour walk, and it's known now as Atlantic Canada's leading attraction. More visitors are coming to Halifax to walk the boardwalk and see it in its entirety because of all the expansion and development that's happening here. Honestly, I don't think we could have picked a better day to be out on the harbour. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous day. As we make our way through, you'll notice the Marriott Harbour Front here, and so had the choice to build taller if they wanted to, but decided to keep to a lower footprint and more encompassing with some of the historic properties that you see here. So on the left you'll see Salties and Pickford and Black and a number of historic buildings, houses there. These are heritage buildings, but they were originally known as waterfront warehouses. So in the early days, this is what we would have for seafarers to use for cargo and other supplies. But these were all waterfront warehouses that are now converted to restaurants, shops, and various boutiques here along the Halifax waterfront. I mentioned to you earlier that Halifax is a city of firsts. So we had the first ferry system, we had the first post office, first newspaper, and first bank. Are you familiar with licensed pirates, licensed privateers? So when the British were here, the king gave one gentleman, his name was Enos Collins, the ability to loot Spanish and French ships coming into the harbor. Enos Collins looted so many ships and became so wealthy that he opened the first bank in Canada. So when you're walking along Lower Water Street, it turns into Upper Water Street. You'll notice engraved in the brick building, we can see between the two buildings here, it'll say bank, and that was the first bank in Halifax, first bank in Canada, and started by Enos Collins. The ferry system, we also had the first ferry system in Canada. Until 1955, the only way to Dartmouth was either by ferry or around the Bedford Basin, and we'll get a better sort of understanding of the Bedford Basin as we head back. But ladies and gentlemen, the first ever ferry system in Canada was a rowboat, and it was a rowboat with one gentleman who insisted you wear your Sunday best, and he would take you across to Dartmouth. So could you imagine being rowed across to Dartmouth there? Thankfully, things have grown, and we now have the Halifax Metro Transit Ferry, which can take you over to the Albany Landing or the Woodlawn area. And I'm told that the city's growing so much that we might even have a third ferry that will go to a different location. See, oh, did we get wet again? Oh, that's extra if it happens, right? That's not part of the tour, that's an extra bonus. So, a little bit of the wake, ladies and gentlemen, from the ferry service. Now, we're going to make our way past Cable Wharf here, and so this is where our company operates from. We're closed today for private event, or you would see lots of people on the patio there. Hello! And this is the tall ship Sova, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the three-masted schooner built in 1939, built in Sweden, used for cargo runs within the World War II, and now home here in Halifax as our signature sailing vessel. The Queen's Mark residence here is home to the Muir Hotel, the Queen Mark's residence, as well as commercial buildings. This has done so much for the area, ladies and gentlemen, because it's really extended the boardwalk north into Halifax from the south end of the city. Visitors can walk down the steps into the water and put their toe in the Atlantic Ocean if they want to. There's 11 restaurants within that complex. The fanciest of all the restaurants will go here in Rise Again. You can see Rise Again there. That will be the high-end restaurant. You can't see it from here, but you can see the people standing up at the top. Rise Again is an observatory, so you can walk up to the top and look out, or you can turn around and it's like an amphitheater. Okay? Now, the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic is right here, ladies and gentlemen, so this is where you want to go for the Halifax Explosion exhibit. Also part of the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic is the Acadia. See the Acadia vessel here, ladies and gentlemen? It's the only vessel to have survived the Halifax explosion, World War I and World War II. It's a survey vessel that's done many surveys in the Arctic, and is the only one here to have survived all three World War I and II as well as Halifax explosion. The Sackville here that you just passed also has significance, and so this vessel shares its name with a car, and we'll see if you can guess that. But this vessel was used in the World Wars to take convoys out of Halifax and help search for submarines, and it's known for its maneuverability and its speed. Do you know what name of this ship is? And it shares its name with a vehicle. Any thoughts?
Ferrari.
Oh, Rachel, you cannot guess. No. We gotta see if anyone can get it. Any guesses? The name of the vessel is the Corvette. So they are Corvette vessels, and then of course we know the Corvette vehicle that named itself after the Corvette vessels. Just as we make our way around Halifax Harbour, I'm going to come around and just take any pictures of you if you would like, and then we will turn around and we'll start the story about the Halifax explosion as well. Now, before I do that though, I'm sorry, always hard for me to see a little bit with the awning, but you see George's Island here? That island is George's Island, and so at the top of George's Island is Fort Charlotte. You see the signal mast there? Now you can, once we get a clearing, you'll see a direct sight line to the signal masts on the Citadel Hill. Fort Charlotte is opened George's Island is open on weekends only, Saturdays and Sundays. But on the top, Fort Charlotte, they've opened all the tunnels, so you can go through the tunnels that were built all through the island. It's really an interesting visit. It's part of Parks Canada, and so we hope to see it someday as a 7-day-a-week attraction. But right now, it's weekends only, and it opened in 2020, so it's only recently that it's open. We think it could have as much popularity as Alcatraz does in San Francisco. We hope that. Sorry, folks. And of course, right in front of us, you see the cruise ship. Captain Rachel's going to do a bit of a turn here so you can see the cruise ship. But there's the midship is here, the German boat. Yeah, would mean my ship in German. And so, would you know the capacity? About three. Yeah, I was going to think about 3,000 passengers. So 25 to 2,800 passengers. This area here is Bishop's Landing. You can see locals coming down to fish. I think we got a mackerel coming out there. Let's have a look. That's all part of the tour, ladies and gentlemen. We put him out there around 1 o'clock to catch fish and show you a mackerel.
Yeah, you don't want to eat a fish in the harbor.
So you can see lots of visitors along the Halifax waterfront, and then there's the German ship there. And there's actually 2 ships in today. So Halifax can berth up to 5 ships, 3 which go along Pier 21. So Canada's Immigration Museum, Pier 21, is just behind those ships. So that would be like the Ellis Island is to the United States. This is where immigrants first came to Canada. And we can berth up to 5 ships, so they actually go on the secure piers just beyond where these 2 are. But they're like cities on water for sure.
I totally forgot about that guy. I've done my tours of the old burial ground. Yeah, it's worth the effort. I didn't put my microphone on just because I'm right underneath the speaker.
You can do a voiceover.
I can.
Yeah.
Or nice music, like I'm just getting the scenery.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to tell you the story of the Halifax explosion now. So, if you can all picture December 6, 1917, so World War I. Halifax was strategically important because of the strategic location. Many of the ships came here to refuel, to resupply, and start their convoys to Europe. So I mentioned to you the Narrows. If you can see the smokestacks off in the distance in the north end of the city. So we're coming north now. We went south. So in the north end of the city, there's 3 smokestacks, quite large ones that you might be able to see as we get closer to the Casino Nova Scotia as we leave the water. That is the very most narrow spot of the harbour. On that particular day, there was many ships in the harbour. 2 ships in particular. One was the French ammunition vessel, the Mont Blanc. The second was the Emu, which was the Belgian relief vessel. The French ammunition vessel was full of highly flammable benzol liquid, as well as other.
Alrighty, so I'm not sure what happened there. Anyway, this is coming towards the end of my video. I did let Sean, who was our fantastic tour guide, I just kept his narration going. I was sitting underneath the speaker, so I didn't even wear my microphone on here. But I do want to thank all of you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you do want to support the channel, I do have links down below for my PayPal and my Patreon. And I do want to give a shout out to my top tiered Patreons, which are Michelle Gray and Ozzie Johnson. They have stuck through with their support when I was doing a hiatus. I also want to thank all my other Patreons and channel members for their continued support of the channel as well. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you again on my next video. Bye!